This broadcast from the Matrix Midwest Studios is brought to you by New Ground International. It's time to plan, design, and build your future. Start today at newground.com.
Well, here we are. We are simply 8 days away from the opening of the St. Louis Blues hockey season. October 9th is coming. Home game against the St. Louis Blues and the Minnesota Wild. And we're talking hockey. It's the best part of the year. We welcome everybody to Offside Hockey. Alongside Amy Marxkors, I'm Chris Kerber. We're going to be coming to you every single Wednesday here on Matrix Midwest from 6 to 7 p.m. Hey, we're probably going to have a couple of replays, too, because there's so much to get to. But we are going to have a lot of fun. For those that are just checking it out for the first time, which is pretty much everybody because the show starts today, we've got the 3 stars of the week. We're going to start that up. We've got guests checking in. Today we're going to hear from Joe Vitale. We're going to talk with Matt DeFranks. He's been the beat writer for the St. Louis Blues and the Post-Dispatch now for 3 seasons. We're going to go around the National Hockey League. We've got plenty of topics. We've got a digital Blues segment, what's going on social media-wise with the Blues, and also a look ahead. And we're going to fit it all in within an hour for you.
Well,
Amy,
we'll try.
Hey, welcome back to Talking Hockey.
Thank you.
It's got to be great to just come in and just talk sports.
So much fun. I mean, hockey is nothing if not fun, so I'm ready.
All right, so listen, before we actually get into the 3 stars, this is this is a full open show, right? Full transparency, okay? I'm looking at you and I'm looking at all these pieces of paper going, how many Trapper Keepers did you possibly have when you were a kid?
You know, I take great comfort and joy in office supplies. Okay. So, I mean, if you take me to Office Max, it's the way to my heart. So this is like my comfort notebook. It's how I think.
So this page is upside down. Can I look at what's on the one side of it?
Sure.
All right.
I don't know what that one is. Well, that one's torn out.
This one's even torn out. Yeah. Okay.
You know Sam Altman?
Okay.
I'm the opposite of Sam Altman.
Okay.
I'm trying to bring us back to pens and college-ruled notebooks.
All right. This is the kind of detail you're going to get, folks. Amy's on a roll. All right, let's jump into the 3 stars. Now, I know normally in hockey we do the 3 stars at the end of a game and end of a broadcast, whatever. Well, we're starting off the week with the 3 stars. And, Amy, let's start with Logan Mailloux. This fight that he had in the preseason game on Saturday night against the Chicago Blackhawks. Another opportunity for Logan Mailloux to endear himself to his teammates, but frankly, even more importantly, just get ready for what is going to be a nasty Central Division. Yeah, no, it absolutely is. And I will say this, I think fights are a currency. You can spend the currency, and sometimes you spend them on something that's not worth it. This was a good buy. This was a good fight for Mailloux. You could see his teammates tapping their sticks on the ice. You could see the fans at Enterprise really getting behind him. I thought this was a great message to send. Well, and the other aspect of it was, why did he have to fight? It was actually a big check that he threw. And that to me is a start. First off, you don't have to go chase a fight anymore in the National Hockey League. Frankly, they're kind of hard to come by. But you hit somebody the right way, you hit somebody and kind of knock them silly a little bit, somebody's going to come knock on your door. If you're a big defenseman like Logan Mailloux is, and you want to play a physical style, and you've only played 8 games in the National Hockey League, how do you do that? Well, you make sure that people know I'm willing to drop the gloves. Now, you know what's going to happen. Now that people know he's willing to, there's going to be a couple people knocking on the door. And, Amy, you've seen this over the years. I mean, you've covered the Blues run over a few years leading into the Stanley Cup run with us. The willingness to do that early on in your career is going to give you room throughout your career.
Oh, absolutely. I think you can send a message with a fight who you are, you're defending your teammates, you're ready to get them rallied, but also you don't have designated fighters like you used to. Even, I think it was just 10 years ago, Paul Maurice started, he's now the coach of the Florida Panthers, but he started rolling 4 lines. He's like, I rolled 3 lines, I kept my fighters on the 4th line, but it wasn't until about 10 years ago, you have to roll 4 lines. So now where do your fighters come from? Well, it's going to look different in the lineup.
Yeah, and a lot of times that can come on the back end. The other thing that he can bring to the table is that aspect that, along with Tyler Tucker, can make it a really formidable defensive group for the Blues. Okay, our number 2 star, this one seems kind of easy. It's all the fans. The preseason has begun. The first preseason home game was a Saturday night game against the Chicago Blackhawks. It was a sellout.
Yeah.
The second game on a Tuesday night. The attendance was over 16,000 people for a Tuesday night preseason game. Right? The final home preseason game is going to be a Thursday night against the Ottawa Senators. My number 2 star of the week, the St. Louis fans. They're hungry. They're ready. They've been waiting for this, honestly, since that Game 7 in Winnipeg.
Yeah.
And you know what? They're already coming out in the preseason. Amy, I was talking to the Blues business side. These preseason games are selling as well as some of the regular season games have sold recently. And that Saturday night game against the Chicago Blackhawks was the best-selling preseason game the Blues have ever had.
That's outstanding. I forgot it was a preseason game. It didn't feel like a preseason game. It wasn't just that the fans were there, but they were buzzing, they were cheering, they've got that energy. And I think you're absolutely right that the way it ended, okay, not great, that last second loss has stayed with fans. But you know what else has stayed with fans was the fact of how good the Blues were after the Four Nations break. I think that momentum, just as much as the loss, is what's bringing fans back to Enterprise because they know, wait, this isn't a transition year. We're competing. We're here. And it happened so quickly. I don't know how Doug Armstrong should win GM of the Year because he took that window of transition and he made a competitive team.
I still do not understand how Doug Armstrong pulls off the 2 offer sheets from a summer ago, has the team do what they do. The team had missed the playoffs 2 years previously, gets back into the playoffs, primarily because of that move and then the gutsy move to change a head coach again, and then the trade for Cam Fowler. How Doug Armstrong didn't end up as general manager of the year, I have no idea. No idea.
Yeah.
You know, look, there's other moves that happened. Yes, some other teams went on deeper runs. I'm just telling you, general manager of the year, that was Doug Armstrong last year. Let's hope if he's ready to win it and have a chance to win it this year, and he's already won it before, but then that's even better for the Blues.
Yeah.
All right, let's go to the number 3 star here of the week. And this one's pretty exciting here. Cam Fowler has re-signed with the St. Louis Blues. Not a surprise. Fits the MO of Doug Armstrong. He wanted to stay in St. Louis. Here's Cam Fowler talking about signing his extension.
It's this team. It's the guys that we have in the locker room, the coaching staff with Monty and Webby and Otter. Like I come to the rink and I'm excited to be here. I'm happy to be a part of this team, and the connection that the team has with the city too is something that is special to me. My family and my boys, you know, we're just very comfortable here. So from my perspective, it really wasn't a hard decision. I'm grateful that they see an opportunity here for me, and that's something that means a lot to me as a player. I haven't really played in my career where I was coming up as a UFA. So knowing that I wanted to be here and the team saw a future for me, I think it was just something that worked out on both sides.
Yeah, and I think this is one of the very most impactful signings that the Blues have had in recent years, not only because you're getting a quality player in Cam Fowler, but it changes the way the Blues can look at their prospects now. It changes that. It changes the defense. I think it gives you, obviously top 2, top 4 defensemen. How are you going to fill in those holes as players get older or move on? It buys you time. That's off the ice. One of my favorite things about Cam Fowler, and you notice it, when you are watching guys on the ice and they get the puck, there's 2 things that can happen. The guys can be rushed, they hurry to make a pass, and the clock controls them, or that guy controls the clock. Cam Fowler controls the clock. I feel like he dictates the pace of the play when the puck is on his stick, and then he decides, here's my pass, it's clean, and it never feels rushed, it never feels hurried, and I think the benefit of that changes, even something as a breakout, a simple breakout changes.
So the thing to keep in mind with Doug Armstrong and his MO with this is whether you go to Jay Bouwmeester, to Ryan O'Reilly, to Cam Fowler, to Marco Scandella, right? Doug Armstrong brings guys in, and then he wants to make sure that it's a fit for them and for their family. For Cam Fowler, it was an amazing fit. You don't write much better of a storybook than traded from one team you've always been with. You play your 1000th game on the ice at Wrigley Field. You score a couple of goals, and you work through that. But the reality of it is, and when we mentioned this in the last segment with Doug Armstrong, you pretty much gave up nothing for a guy that is in your top defensive pairing and now you've extended him. I mean, that to go find a defense partner for Colton Parayko midseason and instead of having to pay the extra price for being right against the trade deadline, spectacular. And you're right. This is not only going to keep the Blues competitive, but it 1,000% is going to give that young defensive group more time to come along. All right, we're going to talk more about Cam Fowler, more about the St. Louis Blues defense scenarios, and a whole host of things, including cooking a Greek dish with that guy that was sitting next to me last night, Joe Vitale. He's joining us next on Offside Hockey. All right, welcome back into Offside Hockey. Let's head straight to the satellites. Zoom. We're going to Zoom. You ready to Zoom? Let's zoom over to Kirkwood and my broadcast partner, Joe Vitale, hanging out, not in the kitchen this time. We're going to talk about a kitchen in a little bit. He was just filming new TV commercials for the Blues as they've continued that great theme over at Vintage Vinyl. So yeah, that's why he's looking so good right now. He was ready for TV commercials. Otherwise, we'd probably see a hat and maybe like a Long John style T-shirt on or something like that, right, Joe?
Yeah, this feels more natural, actually. Okay,
that actually looks better. That's more the look I'm thinking about. Yeah.
I'm back. How you guys doing?
We're doing great. Hey, listen, we got a lot of different things to talk about. We're gonna talk about the fun you had with Chris Bennington cooking a Greek appetizer here in just a little bit. But let's get right into training camp and kind of carry on from the game that happened last night. You know, the Blues have now played 4 games. They haven't won any of them. You're not worried about wins and losses in the preseason. But what, if anything, do you start to not say concern yourself about, but you need to start making sure is a key focus heading into the final week of camp?
Yeah, I think, Curve, the biggest thing, from a player's perspective is, talking to Braden, the other day on the bench, he was heading out for practice. Get into a rhythm. I think guys they want to get into that rhythm. They want to feel in sync. Timing is a big deal, timing of routes, timing of forechecks, and then communicating with the guys you're going to battle with. I mean, that to me is all what it's about. They understand. They understand that there's young players, right, that need an opportunity. You need to see those young players. Why? Because they were that young player, right? We all need that shot. We all need that chance. But there does come a time in camp where it's, like I said last night in the broadcast, it's kind of time to put away our toys, if you will, right? The young guys are referred to as toys. You tend to put away the toys, and now let's just go to battle with the men that we have. And I think we are at that point where, with the Ottawa Senators coming to town tomorrow night, and then, of course, going to Chicago on Saturday, just 6 periods left, where I think Jim Montgomery is now going to look to his soldiers here and figure out what they need to do to find the right chemistry heading into next week.
Okay, Joe, we've talked a lot about pace in training camp. Jim Montgomery has brought up pace over and over and over again. And I know now what that means, what that looks like. But paint a picture of the alternative. Like, you would assume that most coaches want to keep pace in training camp, but what are the little things that have made pace what it is today in the training camp?
Yeah, Amy, I think it's a good question. Expect nothing else from you, of course, the great Amy Marxkors, asking great questions for a long time now across the St. Louis area. Pace to me with this team, I think that you look at young players and old players, young player pace, old player pace, the pace of play. Curbs asked a question to Otto Stenberg to kind of summarize what I'm about to say. He asked him yesterday, what's the difference between European hockey and North American hockey? And Otto went right to the rink size. Of course, Olympic sheet in Europe for the most part, and then in the NHL size in North America. NHL size, of course, much smaller. So things are happening quicker. That, to me, is the pace, right? You think of pace, you think of speed, the neutral zone. You think of like the Dylan Holloway goal last night, coming through, flying up the penalty box side, drop pass, finds the middle. That certainly is pace too. But for me, I think the pace and the rhythm that Jim Montgomery is really referring to is making those plays quickly. Time and space is so limited in the NHL right now. I joke with Robert Bortuzzo and Barrett Jackman a couple weeks ago, beginning of training camp. we all looked at each other with the pace of play and how quickly you got to make plays, give and goes all over the ice. Neither of us all felt like we could even play in the league right now because you just have to think that much quicker. So the pace is just that. How do you make plays, good plays, smart plays, under the pressure? Because we saw last night in Dallas with a big boy lineup, or a bigger boy lineup rather, the time and space, it just keeps getting smaller, smaller, and smaller. And that's where those smart hockey players really come to life. That's why you look at Tim Taylor, you look at Doug Armstrong, Alexander Steen, they're all saying the same thing. Over the last few years, we're trying to draft players with a high hockey IQ. I said it to Curbs. Guys are big, guys are strong, guys are skilled. It's across the board now. Everyone has those tools. Now, the one tool you're not gifted with, the one tool you have to develop over time that really separates players is the intelligence, which of course leads right into the pace for which they can play with because of the decision-making that comes at this up-tempo style of hockey right now in the National Hockey League.
Man, I'm watching you on this screen, and the only thing I could really think of here is, I bet you can't wait till you have my hairstyle because it's going to make life a lot easier.
One day, and it's coming. You know.
I know it's coming.
It
You're close to denial zone.
The flames.
See, I don't know.
See if
Though.
I can get a shot on my back here.
I think your hair is like the perfect outward manifestation of like the inside, who you are, your personality.
Joe, Amy keeps using words that I got to tell you what, I'm going to start making a regular segment of Offside Hockey, a thesaurus segment or a dictionary segment. I bet you didn't think your hair would be manifesting something.
What is manification, and why is my hair related to that?
I have no idea.
I don't know. If you had to define your personality, you could just show a picture of your hairdo. I feel like that's you.
Well, I know he doesn't have a toupee, but that style, when he messed it up on purpose, makes it look like the toupee's trying to run away.
Are you at the magic house right now, Joe?
I got to pull this. Well, he lives in a magic house. You live in a magic house. Absolutely right.
I do. It's hard to do these Zooms. It's hard to break free. I'm in my daughter's room. I'm like, get out of here. You go shoot. I got chickens over here. I got kids over here. Give me a minute. I need a minute to go to work, people. So I found a little quiet little nook. If you like that word, Amy? Nook. Not a bedroom, a nook, where I can kind of do this Zoom with you guys.
Yeah.
And which a nook is different than a nanook, which is the male bear, right?
Oh,
up
there you
in
go.
Alaska.
Yeah.
Okay, listen. We know of some of the obvious battles. You know the battles for final defense pairings. You know that you're in a camp battle with Lucic trying to make the team, Joseph, Texier, Walker, those guys. Really, one of the other intriguing storylines that's been talked about but could be dug into more is the flexibility that they have. They know what Braden Shen has done with Kyrou and Holloway. Last night we saw Pius Suter, the offseason signing from Vancouver, 25 goals last season. In that situation. How do you make that battle of how those second and third lines shake out? Or what you've seen so far?
Yeah, Curbs, for sure. I mean, listen, I think last night, Doug Armstrong and Jim Montgomery, they're trying to answer some questions. There's big questions, right? Does Otto Stenberg stay, right? Do you sign Milan Lucic from a tryout to a contract? Those are big picture questions. But, there's always these smaller snapshot questions throughout camp. The health of Dylan Holloway. How does he look? Is Matthew Kessel solidified himself as that 7D man? Where do you put Mayu? These are smaller snapshots, smaller packages, but they do need to be answered. And one of those smaller questions that certainly needs to be answered this camp was, where do you put Braden and where do you put Pius Suter? To me, those are the 2-3. Thomas, the solidified number one. You got Oscar or Bukestad trying to figure out what that fourth line center looks like. Braden certainly is capable of it. We saw that last year with the Kyrous and the Holloways, and you put skill around them. But then you bring in this, I'll bring up another toy. You bring in a new toy, and you want to kind of play with that new toy. It's like that movie Toy Story. You ever watch Toy Story? Amy, you ever watch that movie Toy Story?
Do you know, I've not seen that movie, Joe. I know all about it. I know Woody and Buzz are best friends.
But you've never actually seen it.
No, but I think I don't have kids, Joe, and I think I'm the wrong demographic. I don't think I went to see Toy Story as a 27-year-old.
Well, as an immature 54-year-old, you don't need kids to watch some of it.
No, Night at the Museum,
yes.
that I can quote word for word.
Both good. Andy's the boy, and he loves his little doll Woody. I love that Woody. He's a funny guy. He talks about a snake in his boot and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Anyway, so his birthday comes around, and Andy has all his Woody doll, and he has his horse, and he has all this fun stuff. He gets a Buzz Lightyear. Whoa, like a big old Buzz, like to infinity and beyond. Buzz says, and all the toys are jealous, especially Woody. Woody's like, hey, I'm Andy's toy, but he gets booted off the bed. Then he starts, Andy the boy starts getting like Buzz Lightyear posters and sheets and all the kind of crazy stuff. My point is this, Jim Montgomery, he's got a new Buzz Lightyear. That's Pew Suter. So you gotta try out the new toy. And Braden knows this. He's been around the block. He was that new toy when he came over from, whether it be the LA Kings to Philadelphia or Philadelphia to St. Louis. He was the new toy, and he understands that there's no pressure there. It is what it is. But now Jim is playing with. He's not playing with Woody anymore. He's playing with Buzz. He wants to play with Suter, and he wants to see what this looks like. Okay, so last night, to tie this all together, makes sense of this because it's getting a little jumbled. Pew Suter looked really good between Jordan Kyrou, and Dylan Holloway. I think that Pew looks like a player to me that is a step ahead of the game. He's a player that you see him on the street, you're thinking, this guy's not a hockey player. He's not very big. He doesn't look super strong, right, of course. But he is. He's got something up here. And he's had to really work well to understand the intelligence of the game, to get ahead of the game. And that, to me, is what that line needs right now. Dylan Holloway, a shooter, a playmaker, a forechecker. Of course, Jordan Kyrou, he's a shooter. So to me, I thought that they found really nice chemistry. And I think, to me, beginning based off what we saw last night, heading into next Thursday, I think it's Pew Suter's job now to lose. And I think they more have Braden hanging on that third line with, of course, a great pair of Jake Neighbors to his left. And then that one spot no one knows yet, third line right winger, who is going to take on that role.
All right, well, folks, that's Joe Vitale. Coming up in just a couple of weeks, we're going to have an X's and O's segment with Joe. So Joe's going to be on really walking you through some real strategy. Joe, thank you very much, and hopefully your Dachshund Slinky toy survives another round with the kids. All right, when we come back, Matt DeFranks. This guy's one of my favorite people to talk hockey with on a regular basis. We're moving over to the couch. We're talking more about Blues Camp with Matt DeFranks in a moment. Back on Offside Hockey here on Matrix Midwest. Anytime you open up the newspaper to read about the Blues, or if you're part of the new age and you're logging into stltoday.com, you're reading the works, for the most part, of Matt DeFranks. He's been the beat writer now of the St. Louis Blues for the Post-Dispatch for the last 3 years. And Matt, welcome to Offside Hockey. Any topic, socks, anything is fair game at this moment. We will talk hockey, but Amy's probably going to take us down some rabbit hole that'll go somewhere. But welcome in.
Thank you.
Welcome to yet another season. For a young man that was born in Miami, went to Notre Dame, has written hockey for the Florida Panthers, the Dallas Stars, and now the St. Louis Blues. How excited are you at this time of the year, every year, when the regular season begins?
It's kind of a natural progression every year. Go through the summer and spend a lot of time with my wife, my new daughter, and every single year, around September or so, it gets time. The itch comes back to get back to the rink and get back to being around hockey every day and doing all of that. So I'm excited. I think this year in particular, the way that the Blues ended last year, it brings a lot more anticipation coming into this year, a lot more fan interest, which is obviously great for the newspaper business for us.
Yeah. Well, I love reading your work, Ron. You mentioned. Yeah. Well, yes, I was going to say you mentioned the Post-Dispatch, and I spend so much time logging in. I always have to log in that I know my obituary is going to say she died doing what she loved, logging in to the St. Louis Post-Dispatch. But I do log in, and that's exciting to read your work. Have you always loved hockey, or did you come into your own with hockey later?
Yeah, so it kind of happens in a different sort of way for me. Like, I grew up in Miami. I followed the Florida Panthers more so as a fan than anything. But when you're involved with the sport, it's a whole different level of involvement and expertise and having to follow it very closely, right? So it happened in South Florida. I was covering Florida Atlantic football. That was when Lane Kiffin just got hired there, and our Panthers beat writer was now no longer at the paper, and so they just moved me over to cover the Panthers. That was 2017-18. Spent a year there, and then went to Dallas for 4.5 years. And the more you spend in the sport, the more you want to be around the sport. So it's turned into a really fun thing that I enjoy being around, and I enjoy writing about too.
And then became the typical St. Louis story. Married a woman from St. Louis, so guess where you're moving to?
Yeah, that's right.
That's where you're coming. All right, let's get into training camp here a little bit. There was a lot made because this is the first camp that had really all the young guys, pretty much all the first-round picks that the Blues took over the last 5 years. The picks that they earned either through not making the playoffs in the last two or the trades of O'Reilly, Tarasenko, and that group of guys when Doug Armstrong decided to make an organizational and a directional change. So much has been made of those guys. But if there's any one thing that's become clear, the success of this team is going to be those core veteran guys that have been here. How are you shaking out the old guys versus the young guys so far in camp?
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that Doug Armstrong has done well in this retool, rebuild, whatever you want to call it.
Don't you wish they actually had named it? So you don't have to use three words every time.
I think retool was probably the one. Yeah. But when I think about the waves that they've been able to build, right? You have the older wave with Shen and Falk, Parayko, Bennington, that group. You have the Thomas Kyrou kind of mid to later 20s, and you have Holloway, Broberg, and now Mayu in that kind of younger 20s group. And after that, you have the teenagers and the 20-year-olds coming in a few years. So they've been able to build wave after wave, and that's something that's really hard to do in today's NHL. When I came from Dallas, that was something that they did very well, was they were able to have the Ben and Sagan and Klingberg years, and then the Robertson and Heiskanen years, and then now they're building with Wyatt Johnson and that kind of core. And the way that they were able to do that by drafting well later in the first round, mid-20s, is something that you've seen with the Blues as well. I mean, Robert Thomas and Jordan Kyrou, not top picks, but they've turned into really franchise cornerstones. And to see what Doug Armstrong and his group has been able to do to build waves, it makes you think that this is more sustainable. It's not just 2 months after the Four Nations, right? It's you're able to build kind of year after year and to watch those guys grow. And the other part is not have to rush them.
Yeah, no, and I think going to not having to rush them, one reason why that Cam Fowler extension is so significant, I think that changes the outlook of how you approach your defense. And you can say it even maybe takes a little bit longer for a defenseman to develop and mature into that role. And so to get Cam Fowler, knowing what you've got in your system, it looks like, okay, the Blues are solid, they're good, and they're going to be for a while.
Right, because if you looked at Cam Fowler and you said, well, he's a UFA after this year, he's going to walk away, that leaves a hole in your top pair. It leaves a hole in your first power play unit. And then you wonder, okay, how do we fill that? Do we go out and get another young defenseman the same age range as a Logan Mailloux or something? But those are hard to find. I mean, we saw what they had to pay for Logan Mailloux, and he's not a proven top pair, top power play guy. So the fact that you have a hole there, they would have had a hole there, and you're able to not rush guys like Theo Lindstein, Adam Juracek, maybe further down, Colin Ralph and Lucas Fisher, you don't have to push those guys into roles where they're not ready for. And not saying that they would have jumped right into a top pair role, but to have them on a third pair when they should be in the AHL is also detrimental to their development. So I think even that deal, the $6.1 million, is going to look like a steal in the future as the cap keeps going up. And as third pair defenseman, probably going to be making $4 or $5 million. You're going to have Cam Fowler, albeit in his mid-30s, he's going to be making 6.1. I think it'll be an okay deal that they'll have.
We could do an entire show on the Blues drafting. If you make the assumption that these 5 young guys that we just talked about are going to be players in the NHL, and by that I mean either players in the NHL or pieces that Doug Armstrong uses to improve another part of the organization, like a Zach Bolduc in the trade for Mailloux. In the 16 draft picks in the first round that the Blues have had since Doug Armstrong got to St. Louis, since he took over in 2010, every single one of them will have played in the NHL or been used as a piece. The only one that hadn't played in the NHL but was used as a piece was Dominic Bach, and that was for Justin Falk. So that ability to draft in that middle to late first round and find the equivalent of top 10 picks is really phenomenal in how that shakes out. Nathan Walker's an interesting one for me because he signed a new 2-year deal. So you know exactly what the Blues think of him. And yet, they've got to give Lucic a chance to try to make this team, and there's these other things. It always kind of feels like they're looking, there's something here. Look, he finally played 73 games. To me, this guy is a regular part of your lineup, barring any kind of injury. He brings a consistency, doggone bone attitude that really, with that WTF line, they set the tone and created the identity of the team. And I got to think they got to do the same thing this year.
Yeah, I think last year, Jim Montgomery told you what he thought of that line in the playoffs. They started every single game. Every single game, that line, that fourth line was on the ice to start the game because of the tone that they brought, because of the physicality that they brought. And with Nathan Walker in particular, they didn't have to re-sign him to an extension right now, right? He was under contract for the whole year. They didn't have to do 2 years even at that point, right? So the fact that they see enough of him in being involved in every single game potentially to want to sign an extension early, to want to sign a 2-year extension early, kind of shows what the organization thinks about him. And I think we've seen with Jim Montgomery, he likes the effort that he brings, the second and third effort that he talks about so many times. And Nathan Walker brings that on a nightly basis. You know what you're going to get out of him. The offensive upside may not be there, but there's 12 forwards. You don't need them all to be the same role, and he fills his role pretty well.
Matt, thanks for coming in, joining us for our first edition of Offside Hockey.
It was great. Thank you.
This guy, his wife didn't like to cook meat when she was pregnant, so he was, before every road trip, he'd make sure that everything was prepared for her.
Really?
Before we go. Life on the road is a beat writer.
Wow, that's impressive.
Yeah, she was, early on in the pregnancy, she had to leave the house whenever I was cooking because the smell would bother her, so I had to make sure she was all set before I went on the road.
Chef Matt, writer extraordinaire. You can read him all season long in the St. Louis Post-Dispatch. We'll come back in a moment. Time to break away from the Blues a little bit, and when we do come back, we're going around the National Hockey League, and Kaprizov's going to be able to pick up a couple of lunch tabs around the league this season. One of the best parts of Offside Hockey every week that we come here, and we're coming to you on Wednesday nights from 6 to 7 here on Matrix Midwest, is getting around the National Hockey League. Because we know we have NHL fans all across the city that are fans of other teams, not just the Blues. Maybe they've moved in from another city, you name it. So let's go around the National Hockey League right now, Amy, and let's start off with just another feel-good story. Although something tells me this story isn't over. Marc-Andre Fleury returned for one game.
It's so much fun to see him out there. He was in the training camp, and it was hilarious to listen to the audio. He was mic'd up, and he just kept saying, "Poke check, poke check, poke check." He put 29 decals on the cars of Sidney Crosby, Chris Letang, Evgeny Malkin, and then to go out and play a game in Pittsburgh. I'm pretty sentimental. I'm cheesy. I loved it.
It makes me wonder, and it really does. I expect to see some goaltending injuries over the course of this season. I wonder if there's still some general managers that are going to reach out to him and see if he's really done. See if he's
wow.
Like, now he went and he signed that one-game contract with Pittsburgh to play that preseason game and go that route. But I'm not convinced in the end for Marc-Andre Fleury that he's really done. But one of the league's greatest goaltenders, one of the league's greatest personalities, fit in so perfectly with Crosby and Malkin in that group. That is a neat story to see. All right, well, let's go back inside the Central Division. How about Kirill Kaprizov? You know, there was a report about a week ago where he had turned down $128 million. If true, it worked out for him because they signed him to an 8-year, $136 million deal, the richest contract in the history of the league. And Amy, that's an average annual value against the cap of $17 million a season.
Cha-ching. Well, okay, so Kirill the Thrill Kaprizov, when you see this signing, I think, one, it kind of puts the pressure on the Edmonton Oilers and McDavid. What are you going to do? Because the Wild said, we want him. We want Kaprizov. We're going to keep him. And the press conference after they signed him, because he did turn down that first offer, that press conference after they signed him, a reporter asked him, are you excited? And Billy Guerin, the GM, goes, he blanking better be, which is a great response from
Billy
the
has
general
such
manager.
a great personality. This was an important one for the Minnesota Wild. If there are franchises around the league, actually most of them when you really think about it, but when you're the Minnesota Wild, when Bill Guerin took over, he said, we got a boring team. And he was right. I mean, sometimes there are broadcasters that come up to you and go, we apologize for what you're about to see, because they played that Jacques Lemaire trapping style for so long. And he's brought life back to it, and what Bill Guerin done there is really quite amazing. Having said that, they had to make sure they got Kaprizov under contract. This was not one that you could let get away. The Minnesota Wild had to pay more than they wanted to. They did not want to have to negotiate against themselves, as Michael Russo, the great beat writer up there for The Athletic, was reporting. But they still knew that they were going to have to do something. This is one they couldn't let go, and I'm glad they got it done. Stars like this and markets like that, we've got to make sure they stay put, and they should.
Well, and as a quick note, too, I wonder if Kaprizov also felt that he didn't want to play too fast and loose with this, because you see Alexander Barkov go down in training camp. You see Matthew Tkachuk. He's out until January because he has that injury. Injuries come quickly in the NHL, and yeah, he's a valuable player, but I bet you want to lock that down just in case something were to happen.
All right, well, speaking of Barkov, let's move to that one. What a hit for the Florida Panthers right now. Alexander Barkov, in practice nonetheless, suffers an injury, tore his ACL, his MCL, and while they did not say he is out for the season, their general manager came out and said it's a 7 to 9 month injury. So we'll see what that means, but Paul Maurice addressed the injury to Alexander Barkov.
There's no hiding it. That's a hole, and that's the big man, right? So he has such an important place in that locker room. I think what we're going to get to experience now is you'll get to know some of the other leaders that we have in our room. And we'll get to see other players. I mean, at the end of the day, I know there's the idea next man up. I get all that, but there's not a next man for Barkey Skates. So we just got to share it. It's got to spread across the room and the coaches, and we'll pick it up a little piece. You know, try to. You can't fill the skates, but we can certainly put a good man in that position. So don't walk around. You get one day. You get one day to be sad. Then tomorrow I want everybody happy.
I mean, he's pretty honest. I think Paul Maurice has more wisdom per word than most coaches out there, and he's pretty direct. And
well, he's been through it all from a coaching standpoint as a young coach with Hartford. You know, to be right up there amongst the all-time greats in wins, and you're also up there with the most losses of all time. You've been through a lot. You know how to manage it. And for him to get validated finally with a couple of Stanley Cups is big. But that leadership approach, like Craig Berube, Jim Montgomery, Paul Maurice, like we are moving into the age of just hit you between the eyes, truthful, lay it out there coaching.
Yeah.
And I think it's frankly a welcoming state. This is a big injury because like you said in the previous segment, it's not just Barkov. Matthew Tkachuk is out until probably the Olympics. And that injury is what was stemming from the Four Nations tournament. So Florida has some challenges ahead of them. They've got some depth. They've got the pedigree. They still have the swagger. And if there is a team that can overcome this, I got to think it's going to be them.
Yeah, it'll be interesting how they do it. I mean, for whatever it's worth with goal differentials, right, and the way they're scoring goals. Yeah, they scored a lot of goals. They let in a fair amount, and losing Tkachuk, losing Barkov, you're losing those goals. Now you're in the negative in goal differential, so they do have to replace that offensive production. But as Paul Murray says, you can't just say next man up for a Barkov.
All right, how do you follow your favorite team, the St. Louis Blues, around the National Hockey League? You do it online. We're going to take you inside the digital world in a moment on Offside Hockey.
Looks like a Backstreet Boy.
All right, welcome back into Offside Hockey. Every Wednesday, 6 to 7 p.m. here on Matrix Midwest. We talk Blues, we talk around the NHL. but we also get into some fun with you. If you haven't been following the Blues on their social media channels, make sure that you do, because when you do, this is the kind of content that gets sent right to your phone.
I can't imagine getting yelled at by Montgomery and Cotton Eye Joe is blasting in the background.
Who tweeted that? Instagram
It's a tweet. Yeah. Who tweeted? No, I'm gonna tweet.
One round of playoffs, age should have been at least 5 years.
Shen looks like a Backstreet Boy. I mean, not great, but I've seen in Redworks.
Oscar Sundqvist get his mail delivered to the penalty box, question mark. I don't know. I mean, he spelled my first and last name wrong. So I don't know if I can really take credit for this, you know?
Why are all their pants so short? Like our shoe pants? Is that what they named?
I think it's just hard to find good length for hockey legs. Big butt and also lengthwise, you know? Sometimes it's just hard to have both, you know?
Okay. Colin's on my almost too nice to be a hockey player. Laughing face. That's funny. I tried, I guess. Gotta turn my mean face on when I hit the ice. So that's a good one.
Walker is an inspiration to short kings everywhere. I'll definitely take that. Thank you very much. Here goes out to all the short kings.
Jimmy looks like he could do my taxes. I did go to college, so I brag a little bit about that, but not really.
Tell Cam Fowler I'm shaking and vomiting in a Starbucks because of him. So, I'm not sure if that's meant to be positive or like, you know, they're disgusted by me, but if it's a good thing, then I'll take it and I appreciate it. If it's negative, I'm not really sure how I can help, but thank you if it's positive.
Tell Sonny I love him. That is very nice. I like this tweet. I don't like that one.
Personality.
I love it. Hey, Sonny just had a kid. Congrats to Sonny.
Sonny just had a kid. He's got a great personality, and they all do. That is why that is so much fun. All right, so each week we're going to take you sometime in some way into the digital world. Okay, when we come back, we look ahead. We also tell you where you can find Amy's sweatshirt that she's wearing tonight. We'll bring it back in a moment. Hey, thanks for tuning in to Offside Hockey. We finish up the show every week with what's looking ahead, what's coming up. But real quick, Amy, you just went into the STL Authentics Team Store at Enterprise Center.
Yeah.
You shopped, you found that sweatshirt. They're awesome down there, aren't they?
Oh.
So I grabbed this shirt as well.
Yeah, they've got some great stuff. I got this. I got a couple of half zips. I got a sweatshirt, some really nice like tech apparel. Also, because I love the red.
Show me the logo here.
Oh, yeah.
There we go.
There we go.
The logo's on it.
Because I love the red. I bought like this Team USA, like the red, white, and blue, but blues windbreaker. And it's so cool and it's so red.
Okay.
Someone's got to stand up for the red.
You and I are going to deal about that with that red thing in just a little bit. All right, look ahead for the St. Louis Blues, the home opener next Thursday, 1 week from tomorrow, October 9th against the Minnesota Wild at 7 p.m. There's going to be a pregame rally at Union Station. Our thanks to Union Station once again for helping put that on. Joe Vitale and I are going to be up on stage. We'll have some guests, some great music. So we'll see you all at Union Station at 3 in the afternoon on the 9th. So from 3 to 5:30 p.m. at Union Station, that's the pregame celebration. And then it ends in time for you to walk all the way down with a massive group of fans, like a parade, straight to the arena for the home opener. Hey, thanks for tuning in to Offside Hockey. We're coming your way each and every week, and we look forward to spending the season with you. Have a great evening, have a great week, and we will see you at the rink.
This Matrix Midwest Studios is brought to you by New Ground International. It's time to plan, design, and build your future. Start today at newground.com.